goals, enterprise goals, IT goals. This is what was logically expected. Build, acquire and implement, manage change. Deliver service and support, you have got, manage service request incidents, manage continuity, manage security services. And monitor, evaluate, assess the system of controls, and MEA 03, monitor, evaluate and assess compliance with external requirement. So these are the processes which will in turn impact your building your procedures and policies. So all these enablers themselves are interrelated, not standalone. So you are not building a procedure in vacuum, you are referring to this in that procedure, in that process, you have got all these input, process, output, you have got activities, you have got goals, all these things Rajiv also talked about, and pick up from there when you build your procedure. Right? And I think this also you might have seen, for each process, you have got in the enabling process document, you have got process identification, description, process purpose, goal cascade, process goals and matrix, RACI chart, detailed description of process practice, related guidance, all of those things are already built in the enabling processes book. Are you aware that COBIT, all these 3 new books that have been published are available for free download for members? And even if you are not a member, the COBIT framework is available for everybody. We do not look at those at all. That's not my job. Whereas COBIT 5 for information security looks at everything in the organization. And surprisingly, everything seems to be related to information security. So that's a sort of holistic approach you get by using COBIT 5, and not only a specific only information security related implementation. Information security is affecting practically all the processes in the organization. Right. Then organization structure. So this is what was defined, and from that we picked up governing body. What are they accountable for? Setting directions for protection of SPDI, issuing privacy policy, monitoring breaches of the policy, reviewing the privacy policy once in a year. Management committee comprising of all the C-level executives, accountable to governing body, responsible for creation of privacy policy, creation of issuance of information security policy, identifying, assessing, managing privacy risk, etc. And then operations and execution team, whom they are accountable and what they are responsible. So if you look at that chart where we have got all these stakeholders and governing body, etc., accountability, responsibility, delegation. So we have taken help of that and split it up for SPDI. Culture, ethics and behavior. So as I said, this is a huge topic. Behavior has to be dealt at 2 levels, organization level and individual level. Individually, you might not want to do something, but organization wants you to work in this particular manner. You will have to make sure that you follow those practices. So organization level, you have to ensure that the right behavior is expected from the individuals to meet the goals. Now, I am not going to go into details of the behavior aspect, because in information COBIT 5 for information security, they have talked about 8 different types of behaviors, very clearly defined. And I liked it so much, I took the permission of ISACA and reproduced those pages from COBIT 5 for information security. So even if you don't pay $35 to buy the COBIT 5 for information security, and you just want to understand the behavior and ethics and cultural aspect, the SPDI publication has got those pages free for you, right? But I suggest you do look at that. It's very, very important. In the next, the information security session, as I said, I'll deal with this. So those of you who attend that, probably will discuss that in more details. Then enabler 5. You might have seen this diagram of COBIT metadata information cycle. And Rafiq also talked about, and he gave an example of COBIT, so many pages, just data for you, till starts making sense, it becomes information. then you assimilate it, that becomes knowledge, and then you become so wise to be able to use that in all practical scenarios, then that becomes wisdom. So wisdom has not been put here, it is, we are ending at value to the organization. Now how do you use this enabler for information? COBIT has suggested that the information on which we depend extensively, and for Expedia, information is the main thing. If you have got the wrong information, wrong quality information, it can land you in trouble with the law. So information quality goals are intrinsic quality, contextual representational quality, security and accessibility quality, and so on. And then you need to have information lifecycle. So let us see how we are use this in Expedia. So when you say that the information that I am collecting has got good intrinsic quality, what do we mean by that? It means that the information is accurate. I have got accurate information, correct and reliable information, financial records, medical records held by the organization should be accurate, Expedia collected by the enterprise should be captured and stored accurately. So to maintain the accuracy of information, you have to have a procedure for building this intrinsic quality. Or consent, or notice, or objectivity. You are collecting the information like financial information, medical records, etc., must be unbiased, unprejudiced, impartial. Believability, true and credible, and reputation. So these looks like adjectives, but when you start thinking about Expedia, you realize that your procedure should collect an information which necessarily meet this intrinsic quality goal. If you do not have believable information, it has not been collected, it has been collected in a biased manner. We have seen many times profiling and that sort of thing, biased information has been collected and stored. So that will undermine the intrinsic quality of the information that you are collecting. So you necessarily need to have a procedure, make sure that your quality, intrinsic quality of information that you have collected is right. Then what is the contextual and representational quality? In what context that you are collecting the information? Is it relevant? Is it complete? Is it relevant for only identified purpose? Does it define use limitation, integrity? Is the information that you are collecting, is it current, up to date, appropriate amount of information? Are you collecting too much information? Like I give the example of bank, every department is collecting information. It's not an appropriate quantity of information. Concise representation, consistent representation, interpretability, understandability, ease of reputation. So when you go through those quality goals and link that to the Expedia, you realize that, yeah, every item that I'm collecting, the form that I'm building, the web interface that I'm building, the procedure for integrity checking that I'm building, all of these should meet these quality goals. Then you have our security and accessibility quality, availability, timeliness, restricted access, accountability. Senior person in the organization should be accountable for Expedia collected by the organization. Then you have got information lifecycle. So the input process should be planned, web-based forms, emails, etc., etc. You have to define the purpose when you plan for collection of the information, duration, option for not providing, opting out, only lawful purpose, stored in a secure manner. You have to plan all of those things. Then you have to design, incorporate the requirements, identify the plan phase. Input may be paper-based or digital. How you create a digital form, how to create a paper-based form. This design will be reflecting your plan. Yeah. Then build, acquire, storing, transferring information with security in mind. You might be collecting manual information or electronic information. For each of these, you need to have appropriate process of acquiring that information, storing that information, and then for storage, do you have proper use and operate procedures? Data could be, as I said, maybe electronic data. It could be paper-based data. It could be hard copy. Do you have an appropriate storage mechanism for that? Do you have a mechanism for sharing that information? And IT Act says under lawful contract, only you can share. You need to have a sharing mechanism. You need to have a using mechanism, restricted only purpose. And you should have a destruction mechanism, like you asked the question. So in this planning life cycle, you need to have Expedia must be irrevocably destroyed after the expiry of the period. Irrevocably, right? For which it was allowed. Digital information destruction involves removing data from all the backup media. Now, if you don't have a process for that, if you are not in the planning cycle, you have not built this use operate part, your information would be still somewhere in some backup tapes. So you have to think through and make sure that this entire life cycle is implemented. And this is where these are the things which reflect into your procedure. So now when you start looking at the procedures, and then you start looking in the procedures where I said meeting the intrinsix quality goal, meeting this goal. You come here, you realize that unless I have got this destruction or sharing or storage, my procedure is going to be incomplete, right? When the receiving organization also provides an equal level of security. Yeah, probably that wording, it has also to be, consent has to be obtained before you share. Yeah, it's not explicit. Good point. I think I'll add that. Maybe I summarize that. But yeah, it should be, because when you say contact, both the contacts, contact with your customer from whom you are collecting the information, and contact with a third party to whom you are giving the information. So as per the contract, you should explicitly say under these conditions only it could be shared. Right. Good, thanks. So any other question on that? Right. Then you need to have best practices. Now think of it. How many best practices? Physical world layer. What do you need? You need practices when the data, SPDI, is at rest. So paper document could be at rest, digital documents could be at rest. You need to have proper best practices so that they are physically secured in locked cupboard or encrypted on drives and flash drives and that sort of thing. When in motion, so does only electronic data move from one point to the other? Even the physical data also moves. So you need to have, yeah? Yeah.
Paper documents should be sent only to secure methods.
Yeah.
Now we all customer data we take, we receive, we send by, let us say, registered mail, courier.
Yeah.
See, secure method has got defined, or one has to?
No, it has not been defined. So that's why you have to now internally define what secure method that you are using.
But that can be got challenged in some sort of a forum by anybody making a different ombudsman or somebody making a different interpretation. It is sent by private courier, it is not secure.
Correct.
And it is now lost,
yeah,
and misused. So,
yeah. So somewhere you have to still come down with, you have deliberated, you have diligently deliberated on that process. It has been approved, and you have implemented that. But if you find that there are flaws, see what my lawyer friend.
Process document approval, all has to be in record.
Yeah, my lawyer friend told me that if you are able to prove that you have put efforts to have the best practices to the best of your knowledge, then that is acceptable. But you have not even bothered to check the background of the courier and those sort of things, then that means you have not taken the due diligence for that. So they are not prescriptive about what you should do for deletion, erasure. They are not suggesting that you use these algorithms to delete the data. But they say, have you done due diligence to pick up something and which you have approved? Right? Somebody else?
This encryption is,
Yeah.
this encryption is defined because as per the Indian Telegraphy Act, we are still using a 40-bit.
Those are the things which are not yet clearly defined. What their intention is, have you taken effort and justified what you are using? And yeah, justify that. You justify that, then that's fine. Then empirical layer.
So regarding this quality of data,
Yeah.
there are certain accuracy of data is to be ensured.
Yeah. So these are these requirements, and you can justify that the law doesn't make me accountable. I am taking a reasonable security precaution. The fellow has given me a wrong PAN. I am confirming that with the PAN database, but he has given a wrong address, I'm not sending a person to physically verify his address. I looked at the KYC norm, I looked at his passport detail, and I'm satisfied with that.
Verifiable.
Yeah, to the extent verifiable. So that's why that responsibility has not been put to you. You are not accountable for the accuracy of the data submitted to you, but your reasonable business practices will be requiring you to have KYC norm, but you are not going to look at whether the passport that is submitted was a forged passport and that you used for his address detail. That is not put to you. Yeah, but if I'm using a forged document, I'll certify it also with a forged signature.
Sir, in regard to this destruction of data,
Yeah.
like any government department or any department, generally, even if it is non-digital, they don't destroy the data. They close the file, but they don't destroy the file.
Government departments are out.
Government or any department, because for the matter of further investigation, maybe those data required. So this destruction of data, is it practically possible for?
See, there are a lot of these sort of loopholes, yeah, and that's why the business of lawyers grows. And it all depends on case laws. So unless there is a case which has been thought through and somebody has given a final decision, High Court had decided, Supreme Court had decided, we can think on the technical terms, but they have to look at the precedent that is set. Then subsequently everybody will follow what was agreed there. Right, so I will not now go into more detail. I am plus 2 minutes up in my time. So empirical layer, and that's why I said whatever I am not reading out, you have to read through the publication. Then you have got syntactic layer, you have got semantic layer, you have to think of information type, information currency, information level. Then you have to look at pragmatic level like retention period, SPDI status. Are you collecting that SPDI which is of historical nature or of operational nature? Is it novelty, attribute that identifies whether SPDI is new knowledge or confirming of the existing knowledge, contingency, social world layer, the information that you are collecting, is it something which can be put in the social world, social media? Yeah? Somebody has got some HIV type of thing. Now are you going to put it on a public website? So you have to also think through that, what information you will be making public. So social world layer, so each of these layers you have to think through. Services, infrastructure applications, what are the services that would be providing support? So we have identified some services like ensure adequate incident response, secure legal services or SPDI, provide SPDI audit services, provide security and alert services for SPDI security. So couple of these additional services, but even if you are maybe you are developing the services in-house, but if you outsource that, accountability still remains with you. So that's the message in potential SPDI related services. Then people skill competencies, do not only stop at general staff. Make sure that you are involving right up to the board and chairman. What are you going to teach to the board and chairman? Proper education to ensure that they clearly understand their accountability for SPDI and possible legal repercussions. They might not even be aware of that. So in that manner, you have to identify what skills, what competencies you need to impart to the people at each layer. And to learn more, this is the place. This is available on Topic-India. This presentation is not in your CD, but I will make sure that it is put on the website so you can download from the website. But don't wait for that, download the paper and go through it. I will eagerly wait for your suggestions.
Nice session. I'll appreciate if you can fill up those feedback form and give it to us. Right. Thank you.
So how long is the break? And
No, it's not a break. We had another session by Vital Raj. So I'm just like, he has a session there.
he has not completed?
Shall we? Thanks for choosing this session, which is on using COBIT 5 in your audit work. Any non-auditors here? Okay, 2. Thank you. Okay. So, what are we going to discuss in this session is the various assurance requirements that are there and the IT audit issues with IT audit performance, COBIT 5, how it can be used for the various assurance assignments, and how do you leverage COBIT 5 to ensure that IT and assurance professionals are aligned around a common framework. That's one of the key deliverables of COBIT 5, I would say. Also some insights into planning, scoping, executing the various assurance reviews. Now, when you really look at, okay, how many of you are COBIT 4.1 users here? Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. How many of you have downloaded COBIT 5? Started using? Okay. How do you find it? Do you think that COBIT 4.1 is a better bet for auditors or 5? Okay, you're familiar with 4.5, it's a known devil. So an unknown angel, let it be there. Okay. Okay, 4.1 was more detailed. Okay, there's a good perspective. 4.1 was more detailed. What else do you find? Do you find in terms of the very framework, components have changed? The way that they are presented, the way that they have gone about is significantly changed? Okay. Before I really get into this, I just want to get this. There were few sessions by Rafiq and other speakers on COBIT 5 which introduced COBIT 5. Any of you who have no insight into COBIT 5 at all? I mean, who are absolutely new to COBIT 5? Okay, there are. Okay, fine. So I'll try to expand some element on the COBIT 5 aspect. Of course, one of the key changes, of course, I would say between COBIT 4.1 and COBIT 5 is COBIT 5 is a little more tightly licensed model as compared to 4.1, and therefore whatever I am presenting here, we respect Isaka's thing for the educational purposes, but each of you can have a licensed individual copy, I'm sure which you would have downloaded by now. And COBIT 5 is not just going to be just COBIT 5 itself. There are a series of publications which are going to be around COBIT 5, and it is going to be much more modularized and pretty comprehensive in terms of how it addresses more from a business framework requirement. So the key, if I can call it, the focus words would be, when you take COBIT 4.1, it was more of a control and audit model. It was more of a control model. Whereas when you look at COBIT 5, it is a business framework for information technology governance and information governance. Okay, the kind of, the assurance assignments that we do. Well, I'll first talk about some of the perspectives. Some of them are generic, some of them are Indian, but they can all be related to a broader requirements, which is a framework which is coming all over the world, right? If you really look at it, one is, of course, the financial and other operational, assurance engagements. Then you have the hardcore IT audits, which are there. And if you really look at the perspectives of this, one is the assurance that management wants. That is, I need to get assured before I really assure somebody, are things okay, right? That's one perspective. The second thing is an external auditor who is coming in to do a typical financial reporting audit. Now, if you really look at the scenario today, the entire raw material that is coming is from the systems. And they are diverse systems. They are systems which are talking to each other beyond the boundaries, because you have e-governance, e-filing systems wherein quite a lot of your government interactions take place in terms of quite a lot of them. So what you're looking at is, how does an external auditor, when we say a statutory auditor, any audit of financial statements under a statute, right? How does an external auditor really get a grip over the confidence in whatever he is signing? So that again brings up in terms of the kind of concerns with IT and the control over IT. Then we have the non-statutory audit requirements. We'll look at some of them, but broadly, if you can put in this audit requirements, you can fit it into this. I just built this up. Let us look at the ultimate stakeholders. When you are doing a financial reporting audit, who is your stakeholder here? So primarily, you are targeting investor. But then, what do you need to say? It is regulated by the regulator, right? So if you really look at it, there are classes of stakeholders who have expectations on assurance on various aspects of the relationship with the organization. And when that comes to that, you are actually looking at trying to put okay, how do we understand the relationship behind it? When you start really looking at the specifics, it could arise from something that is regulated by law, which is a typical compliance requirement, or it could be, as I said, a typical financial reporting requirement, or it could be a governance reporting requirement. For example, companies don't just stop with what the law says. Some of the companies, they exceed and want to tell stakeholders more about how the governance is working in the organization. A typical example is Infosys, right? If you say that they exceed or they extend themselves beyond just what the corporate law says. So we are looking at one part, the corporate governance requirements, which is anyway driven by the regulator. That's the minimum must-haves. But on the other side, you're looking at enterprise governance, which is something which is not just stopping at what is mandated, but going into best practices and trying to tell people more about what they need to know. And who is charged with the responsibility? Typically, when it comes to the regulator, the investors, when it comes to these aspects, you're looking at the board, because you're looking at the front end of the organization in terms of governance is the board of directors. Then, if you look at who is actually driving this day-to-day affairs, you are looking at the management. So, if you see the implementation aspects of getting to do things is done at this layer, whereas the directing and taking accountability at an enterprise level actually happens at the top. So, COBIT 5 made a distinct recognition in this. In fact, if you see, those of you who have seen the COBIT 4.1, it used to be PO, then what did you have? Plan and organize, acquire and implement, deliver and support, and monitor and evaluate. So it ended with those 4 broad domains which are all management oriented. Now of course if you see, we'll see that PO has transformed into APO. Why APO? They brought in this aspect of alignment, then of course you're going about planning and organizing. So before really going about planning and organizing, you're aligning. Aligning with what? And that is where you have the top, another added layer, which is the EDM, which is the evaluate, direct, and monitor. So EDM layer. So what their job is, they are evaluating on a continuous basis what are all my obligations to the external stakeholders. Then appropriately putting in the directions in place to the management and demanding a monitoring over that. So when you look at it, the directions start flowing from here. So you are aligning now at the second layer. You are aligning, planning, and organizing yourself. And of course you have the other aspects of BAI. What is it? Build, acquire, and implement. So earlier which was the AI, so it has now become the BAI. Then you have the DS, which was there earlier, which has become now the DSS. Deliver, service, and support. And the last one, which is MEA, right? So, which deals with the monitor, evaluate, and audit. Now, if you really look at, you have now this board, which is now giving out information to whosoever, and they have to have some confidence from where they take the information. And that is where the need for internal assurance comes in. Now, the whole problem is, the trust is a big question everywhere. If you are an investor in this organization, you actually trust the financial reporting statements or whatever is being given out in terms of whatever is stated there. And it is that trust which makes you take the decision based on the information given there, right? So when we start looking at that, you are looking at building a foundation of trust everywhere. But then when you look at the trust alone model, today information technology is not just looked at as an enabler, isn't it? It is a driver. So that is where it moves away from just a control into something is IT delivering value. Those are the questions being asked. So that is where the COBIT 5 framework not only talks just about trust, it also talks about value. So that is where you will find that ISACA itself has moved its tagline, right? Right? Value and trust in the systems. And it talks about systems and not technology. Is there a difference between system and technology? Yes, obviously, isn't it? So can you give me one example of an example of a system and a technology? Let's take the traffic system. The traffic system or technology? The traffic system. Why? because you have a governance mechanism built into the entire thing. You have the police force who are actually trying to enforce the rules, but then that is dictated by a law which is there in place. There are various guidelines which go through that. Then you have the various, the rules of that. And that's where comes in technology, isn't it? So when you have a signaling technology, it is nothing but implementing certain rules in an automated manner such that it becomes more consistent. So it talks about systems, which is much more a larger aspect rather than just technology, and looks at, okay, I have a business process layer and I have internal controls. For example, if you take a banking operation,